Hello everyone and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I wanted to show you my node and worker setup for 460 contribution points, and this is just something that I figured we would talk about because there's been a few changes recently with all the workers getting buffed and then all the nodes being able to transport materials from one to another easier. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that, and basically contribution points, if you're a beginner and you don't know how it works, let me just talk about it real quickly. So you see these, if they're red, that means they are invested in, and then you click on the node and then you put a worker on the node and then they bring the materials back to insert town. So anyway, with that said, I wanted to go over basically every region, what I think is a notable node, because some things are just worth more than the others. The best way to do this, in my opinion, especially because if you look at this map, you're just like, what is this? And it's confusing. So I think the best way to look at it is like this. It's probably still confusing to beginner players, but it's easier to see at least. Okay, so with that said, let's start by every region, simply because I think that's just the most organized way to do it. If you're a beginner, chances are you're starting at Western Guard Camp and then going into the Velia area for Balenos. So these are what I have connected. If you want to take a screenshot, cool. I just want to go over all of them briefly, otherwise it's going to be a long video of what I think are notable nodes in the area and as the ones you should get as a priority, especially if you don't have a lot of contribution points. So I want to make it worth your time as well. So, as we all know, the Velia and Balenos area in general is known for a lot of timbers and ores. So, and a lot of like farmland, I guess. So the ones I would get, especially for all of you beginners, is the one that invests in chicken meat and eggs. These are high value nodes in my opinion, simply because chicken meat is just one of the most basic cooking recipes ever. And if you want more contribution points, it's probably one of the easiest things to spam. And then you turn it into the byproducts, which are these things. You turn them into Witch's Delicacy and then exchange that for contribution and cooking XP. So if you want to just get that quickly, that's one way to do it. So Bartali's farm for chicken meat and eggs, and then there's another one over here for chicken meat and eggs. This is what I would invest in. Otherwise, aside from that, any other timbers that you can get and like I guess ores are always nice to get. But aside from that, iron ore, believe it or not, you may see millions of them from other content creators. That's just because we've been having the nodes on for like 10 years. But yeah, iron ore, believe it or not, is actually something you will use a lot of over time. And of course, the chicken meat and everything else. So one thing I want to talk about before we go into everything else is there are certain nodes that will probably look like this. Excavation, and you might not have it. So what you have to do is you go to the node and then there's a manager. You talk to them and invest some energy into it and you permanently unlock it. So if you see something like an excavation and you don't have it, just talk to a node manager and then invest energy into it. But aside from that, iron ore over here and everything else, like the chicken meat, iron ore, and timbers are high priority. Number one being just chicken meat, in my opinion. Aside from that, any other timbers are usually worth a lot, especially if you want to AFK process and a lot of other stuff, and we'll talk about that more in the future. But yeah, those are priorities in here. And then if you want to connect to Olivia, I would consider this one more for late game, just because you just want to have the connection. But the way it works now is, like, for example, if you invest in a node, you can send your worker. Let's say you have a worker on somewhere in Velia, but you have Heidel connected. You could send the materials from Velia, like the worker from Velia, to send it to Heidel, which is a recent change that they made in the past, like 6 months, I believe. So I think that's a good thing, and you have to have your nodes connected for that to work. But like from town to town connected. All right, so next we're going into Serendia, which is Heidel and Glish. The ones that I think are important are probably the ones that you can't get regularly. So, in my opinion, cooking honey, it may not be the most valuable now, but there's only so many ways you can get it. So I think that's one that's worth investing into. Of course, more iron ore is always good. But the ones that I think are universally good for everyone, just in case you want to, like, in the future, boost your cooking or alchemy and whatever, wheat is always pretty expensive. And just to give you an idea, wheat is like over here in the 1.5k range. So that's, a little bit higher than all the others, along with iron ore that you'll be using with coal in the future. I'll talk about that soon. And then you can invest into wheat and everything over here. So I think those are the high value nodes. But aside from that, going into Glish is a little bit more valuable than Heidel. The one you want to invest in is excavation. Platinum ore is very expensive, so is trace of nature. If you plan on doing any sort of alchemy in the future and you want to craft your own elixirs, potions, harmonies, and whatnot, trace of nature is just used in a lot of alchemy recipes, and it's pretty expensive. So let me give you an idea. Right now, they're like 111k on the market. So you want to try to get all the excavation nodes you can. And it's a lot easier now than it was like 5 years ago, because we would have different traces for different things, and now they unified it into just one trace, which is really nice. So yeah, aside from that, I wouldn't invest into anything past this one over here, because I think these cost 3. So 3 and then 5 down here if you connected them. But I have my connection down just for Duvencrune. But if I had more contribution, what you would invest them into is birch, timber, and pine. Those are pretty decently valued nodes. But aside from that, in Glish, we have more timbers. Timbers are always valuable. Saps are extremely valuable in the Serendia area. And then excavation if you can, iron. And then what is this one? We have lead ore, which that one's personal preference. But yeah, if you have more contribution, you'd want to invest into more timbers, going down into Duvencrune, but that's a heavy investment and it's not beginner friendly. Okay, so down in the Calpheon area, what we have is connected to the northern wheat plantation. You want to get these barley and wheat, as we talked about before. These are very expensive nodes. Wheat and barley are kind of one of the higher valued ones that you just want to have running all the time, as well as ores over here. Birch timber is generally, like, birch timber is high value in my opinion if you like process them into planks and stuff, and you use them often. Excavation node with platinum, always high value. More birch and sap. Trust me, sap is usually pretty rare on the market because a lot of people have to use them to craft elixirs and everything. So it's more like you're making it for the end game players. So that's why they're always sold out, and end game players do use them. So yeah, that's something you want to have invested just in case in the future you want to do it yourself. Up here we have more birch timbers. We have this connected. I'm not really sure if this is worth it, to be honest, just for this, but I have it connected because I didn't know what to do with it. But yeah, I used to have Port Epheria connected with all the fish. So the reason why I don't have it anymore is just because I don't need it. But if you're a beginner, I don't think beginners need it anymore. But like if you played since 2016, you had to make your own pet food and everything. So like the good feed, and it was always sold out on the market. So I had to make it all myself. So all these dried fish and everything, yeah, we had to get it ourselves. But that's one way to do it if you're just really lazy and, you know, don't want to buy it off the market. In my opinion, just buy it off the market. I know good feed is probably what, let me see. Oh, hold on. Let me reset this one. Start up another thingy. What should we do? Okay. Go through that. Okay, so good feed. I know it's like 27,000 each and you need like a lot of them, but trust me when I say that, you know, it's probably cheaper, especially if you're on a budget, like to, you know, or you don't want to just invest all your contribution point budget on that. But if you did, Port Epheria is probably the best way to get all the fish to turn into good feed and everything. All these are 1 contribution point, so I would go up to here to the island over on the left, this one, and then this one. But the ones you are getting for the highest investment are Octopus and Porgy and Pintado. Those are the ones, in my opinion, are high value. And then I don't know why these are so expensive, but maybe it might be worth it. I just don't have the time for that. All right, going down into Keplan, this area, I strictly have this for coal, because there's only so many coal nodes that you have, and you want to collect this. You do use it with the iron ore and everything to turn it into steel, and steel is connected, used for a lot of things. And then the Glutoni Cave, I have more coal over here, and then Quarry is another coal node, so this is strictly coal. Going down into the Trent area, I would consider this one more like a mid to end game investment, just because if you're a new player, you don't need all of this stuff. What we have down here is a lot of different timbers and ores. So these are like high value timbers and ores. Like fir timber is worth a lot. Rough green crystals are worth a lot. Tin ore, if you know what you're doing with it, then it's good. Same with cedar. These are very high value nodes, along with pine sap if you use it. But these are kind of an investment, so that's like, once again, it's not beginner friendly, but you're getting it because you're using it for like alchemy, processing, and cooking, whatever. So then we have all that connected down here, and then along with the Marie Cave for more pine timbers and pine sap. This one is more strictly because I want the saps more than the timbers, but you know, if it gives both, that's cool. Kind of a heavy investment from Bear all the way down here. It takes a little bit, so I don't know if I'd recommend it, but if you really need it and you're lazy, it's a good choice. All right, going down into the Kamasylvia area, so from Old Wisdom Tree and then Grana. Let's talk about Grana first. Yeah, I have literally this connected for Tooth Fairy Forest because it gives Trace of Nature. And also because, you know, back in the day when I was grinding, you know how you invest in a node and you get a higher item drop rate? Yeah, I had this connected because I was grinding for the Infinite Potion. This was like 5 years ago, and I was just too lazy to take that out. Plus, I think excavation nodes are just generally good. And also at the same time, I was down here in Ash Forest. I was grinding for the Rich Merchant Ring piece, and then of course I was going for Pen Debo. This was like 3 years ago. And if I were to take anything out, I would do that. But, you know, sometimes I actually had this invested for the saps and timbers. I don't think these are worth too much, but like the off chance you do need it, it's there. And then every now and then I actually do grind Ash Forest now because I'm going for the, what is it? Yeah, this thingy, the Decia's Artifact. And yeah, these are from Ash Forest and Olins, and neither of those are really fun. Olins is not as bad, but yeah, these are endgame things. That's why I have that invested. I was like, what? Why do I have that again? Oh yeah, it's because I'm grinding there. All right, so now going into the Old Wisdom Tree. This one is once again more of a weird connection because I want to connect this with Odraxia, and then also when I get more contribution or change it around in the future, it's going to be connected with Duvencrune. But for now, Thornwood Forest, I used to grind there just because the Decia version was really strong and it gave a lot of silver. But Thornwood Sap is actually, you know, something that most people just don't gather there, and they just have the node connected. So chances are you're going to have some Thornwood Sap going in there. And then let's talk about Odraxia for a second. So what I have connected: Thornwood Timber, Thornwood Sap, as I talked about, kind of valuable. I used to do a lot of elixir crafting, so I made a video a while ago of, you know, back when blue elixirs were meta and harmonies didn't exist yet. I talked about all the elixirs I made, and, you know, this looks like, if it looks confusing, it's because it was, and now harmonies exist. So yeah, there's that. The other one, Narcion, is chicken meat and eggs. You know how we talked about that earlier in Velia. That's an important one. Connected to that, we have Olins. I feel like this node has been bugged for like 4 years because it's not as good. So one thing we go for is Mithril. And if you don't know what it's used for, the Mithril is like basically permanently sold out, or at least it was. And it's not like they're not hard to get. It's just you have to know what you're doing with it if you have it, and it's a pretty decently valued node as well. So anyway, we have that there. I don't think the Olin's Valley one is particularly good. However, investing in the Olin's node, because you're going to grind there for whatever one of like the 7 reasons that you should be there, then yeah, I think it's a worthwhile investment. Okay, so aside from that, we have Pilgrim's Ends connected for these. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even I don't even remember why I had that. It's just kind of like connected, and I have this for some weird reason. So yeah, there's that. Okay, so going into Duvencrune, the ones you want to get if you want Mithril is Calc Canyon, and I believe Shuriken has the Mithril and Trace of Nature. So this is a very high value node. Same with Calc Canyon if you want zinc and Mithril. So in this node we have 11,000 Mithril. You see how that's a lot different than 500? Yeah, that's because those are the 2 that are worth a lot. So yep, if you want Mithril, those are the 3 nodes, these 2 and this one. Very good. Along with the traces that you get over here, these are really valuable in my opinion. And then you have to connect it through these 2. So we talked about earlier how I connected all of these just to have it connected to like the Heidel area and so on, just in case I want to move the like materials from point A to B easier. That's cool. And then Dorman Lumber Camp, this is one of those end game investments because you want Thuja sap, and it's more for the sap more than timbers and planks, but once again, not an early game investment. You're getting Thuja for the sap exclusively. These are expensive, so you want to just have that running at all times. Okay, so Mountain of Eternal Winter, Eilton. The ones that are important, Jade Starlight Forest, simply because, one, you grind there, so you want to invest the level into it. So for all of you going for your Labresca helmet, I believe that is a good thing to go for. And as well as Snowfield Cedar Sap, along with Rough Jade, are very expensive nodes. Birch Timber, I value timbers very highly. And then Cooking Honey, because that's like one of the 2 things you have. And Citron, which you don't really need that, it's personal. So let's talk about this. Rough Jade, kind of expensive. If you know what you're doing with it, good. If you don't know what you're doing it, just sell it on the market. Snowfield Cedar Sap for alchemy. Yeah, these are very expensive nodes, and it's kind of a pain to get, so you want to just have that node going. But yeah, I would say these are pretty decent to get, and there's not really too much else to talk about here. Ulakita, you're investing in the nodes strictly for the grind spot. There are no like materials in these nodes and everything. So if you have these connected, it's because you're grinding there. So going down into Tarif and Altinova. So this looks confusing. The way I separated mine is take this line right here from Omar Lava Cave to the Kusala Farm. Everything to the left of this, like over here, that's connected to Tarif, and then everything to the right of this line down here is connected to Altinova. And so one thing I would recommend Omar Lava Cave, because coal is important. Zinc and platinum are high value nodes, and then everything else, in my opinion, on this side is pretty, like personal preference. And then traces of nature over here are good, and then more timbers over here. And then with that said, going down here, we have abandoned iron mine for zinc and iron. These are platinum is very expensive. So let me show you. Zinc is worth a lot. Platinum is worth really a lot for some reason, just because it's like hard to get, I believe. And then everything else invested down into here, in my opinion, is just like you get it because you're too lazy to do something else. So these are all skippable if you don't want anything. You see how we have almost 2 million Elder Tree Timber? Yeah, that's just because I've had this node running for like 9 years. So, and then I've actually tried to process some of that, but I'm just like, I have better things to do, like AFK fishing or something. But like literally anything else. But anyway, with that said, if you want to boost your processing level and just have it go like to whatever number, that's probably the best way to do it. So down here in the Sand Grain Bazaar, we have both of these. Cactus sap, once again, very situational. However, iron ore is worth a lot. So if you're investing into these nodes, it's because you know what you're doing. If not, then it's not relevant. Down in Valencia, more specifically down in Arehaza, I have these connected. And the reason why is because we wanted vanadium ore along with titanium ore. So I had these for Monos accessories back in the day before pre-own and everything. So these are actually pretty decently valued nodes. You kind of have to go out of your way to do it, but it's one of those things where if you know what you're doing with it, it's good, but if not, then I feel like you can invest in other things. But this was mostly for Monos accessories back in the day. And I mean, you still could do it. It's not bad. It's still like, depending on the price of Monos. Let me look at that. Monos. Yeah, the accessories. Yeah, there's a lot of them. So 140 to 160. I think you're breaking even. Back when accessories were like 200, 250 mil, it was profit, but nowadays I think you break even, so it is what it is. Okay, so the last thing we want to talk about, if you are thinking about sailing in the future, one thing you could do is invest into certain nodes. So like if you're thinking about getting the blueprints for your Carrack gear, these islands over here, wait, not this one. It is the ones that give the blueprints. So these two, and then I believe these two. So if you need blue Carrack gear in the future, start investing into that now, just because you're going to need these. And I guess nowadays you can just buy Carrack gear, which is, you know, really nice. But in case you want to make it yourself just to say you did, cool. I have this connected to Paddock's Island just because I'm grinding for the Rich Merchant Ring and I needed to get max level in node investment, but I don't think it's particularly important. So you could just ignore this one. I have it connected specifically for myself. All right, going into the Morning Light, which is the last area. Let's separate this by half and half. Okay, so you see this icon, the Morning Light region territory? Basically, I don't have anything worth investing into in Morning Light 2. Everything here is Morning Light 1 and simply here for Trace of Nature. And then everything else is strictly for like crystals and, you know, whatever materials. All of these are very optional, but I thought these were important because pine timber is nice to have. And going into here, more saps and more pine timber and just everything else that's, you know, kind of limited that you can only get here. But the real reason you're doing all this is strictly for like, you know, all these crystals right here, the ones that you could just buy off the market. Back on day one, when Morning Light came out, these were actually, you know, very rare and everyone wanted these crystals. 2 years later, most of them just sit on the market. But it's still, I think, in my opinion, pretty decent nodes to invest into. And the ones that are also worth investing into, Golden Pig Cave for all of you endgame grinders. This is a good grind spot. So you want to invest into this one for the traces and then the crystals, but also for the item drop rate if you're investing in it. Honglim Base, if you are going for saps. Honglim Base is also a good grind spot, so you want to invest into the node over here as well. Dokubi Forest, if you grind here, double traces. And the grind spot itself, it's not that great. Underwhelming in my opinion. You could watch my video, but yeah, double traces are always nice. And then yeah, that's really about it. If you're going for your what is the new boat, the one that starts with a P, I still don't know if that's worth investing into, but this is the node over here if you want to get the blueprints for it. I believe I did that and then just took the node out because I think you only need like 10 at most, right? So yeah, you want to get the blueprints for the future if you plan on doing it, and then you can remove the node. yeah, it's just one of those things. Who cares? But yeah, I think that's my entire node setup. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, learned something. Just a quick recap of what I think are as important. If you are a new player, chicken meat and various ores, saps, and timbers are always worth it. But we went over every region, so, you know, I think it's good to know what I think is worth a lot and some things that I talked about. So with that said, thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. And yeah, if you are new to your channel, hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you guys come back. We have a bunch of videos coming out in the near future, as well as, you know, with the hardcore server ending in the near future, I wanted to talk about my full thoughts and opinions of it. As someone who didn't main one of the 4 classes, that's going to come up soon. And I'll see you guys later. Peace!